we're going to go to our AI applied to logistic table. Okay, now this is going to be presented by Eric Johnson, Senior Technology Editor in Journal of Commerce, a B2B publication focused on logistics and global trade. He actually is focused on tools that shippers and their service providers use to manage their flow of goods domestically and internationally. In relation to AI, apparently he feels, he'll tell us more about this, that there is a general lack of understanding of what it is, where and how it is applied in the existing systems. So, Eric, all yours.
Thank you, Pilar, and thank you to Chango for inviting me to participate today. Yes, as Pilar mentioned, I'm a technology editor at the Journal of Commerce. We really focus on the management of freight and global trade, both domestically in North America, Europe, and Asia, but also globally, internationally on the modes that obviously shippers use to manage that. So my role is really to help the industry that I cover understand really complicated topics, new software categories that emerge. And one of those has undoubtedly been AI. I'm personally very fascinated with this space because I think it's one of those areas that the industry sort of doesn't even understand how much is happening in the background. And maybe they don't need to know how much is happening in the background. Maybe they just need to focus more on the benefits of AI and less on kind of the how it actually happens. But we are going to discuss over the next 40 minutes with a couple of experts how AI is sort of impacting the industry and what people should focus on, maybe what they shouldn't focus on, and where they should sort of prioritize investment in this space. So I'm really delighted to introduce two speakers. We were due to have three speakers. Unfortunately, Brett Ronk from Global Trade Magazine was not able to join us due to a situation that came up that prevented him. He's very sorry he's not able to, but we have two great speakers joining me in a sec. And I first want to introduce Ashutosh Prasad, who's CEO of KoiReader. Ash, if you can you give us a little bit of background on yourself and what KoiReader is, and then you can go ahead with your presentation.
Sure, Eric. Can you hear me? Okay, great. So first of all, hello everyone who are dialed in. My name is Ash, and I've been in the logistics and supply chain industry for close to 20 plus years. In the industry, I've played very different roles. Until May 2019, I was a vice president at XPO Logistics, helping XPO integrate all the acquisitions on the transportation side of the business to product innovation and strategy, helping sales and operations support. Prior to that, I worked at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Ernst & Young, Oracle, Blue Yonder, JDA, I2. So, I go all the way back into the early 2000s in the industry. And since I launched KoiReader in May, June 2019, I've been fortunate to look into port operations to freight forwarding firms, intermodal companies all over the globe. So it's been a real privilege to expand my horizon from my consulting and operations background in the industry into the innovation side of the business. And it's really, like Eric said, it's really fascinating what's going on in the industry. And it's a lot of things is under the cover, and it's our goal to bring it out in the front of the industry. Hi, Eric. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. Great. Yeah. Sorry, Ash. I thought you had another slide. Well, fantastic. That's great. Sort of intro to what you are doing and your background, and look forward to diving into a bunch of questions that I have around what you're doing. Wanted to introduce our second panelist, Pedro Nieto, who is a senior data specialist at GFT. Pedro, welcome. Delighted that you could join us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and GFT?
Thanks, Aris. First of all, you made a great pronounce on my surname, so I think your response will be quite good. And I'm a data engineer, senior data specialist in quality data engineering GFT. GFT is a global company. We're more than 12 countries nowadays, and we are a consultant for technology. So my day-to-day activities, they are mainly focused on artificial intelligence, IoT, some small part in blockchain and this sort of thing. So we are happy to help our customers to make small steps in this transition into technology, into digitalization, or just getting the better insights from what they have in hand. So they just we are someone that can help us to go step by step in that way. So for the last 10 years, I have been helping different clients, different sectors to find the best solution in the market about technology. And as you mentioned, artificial intelligence is something that we can't stop talking about it nowadays. So that's my place.
Great. Fantastic. Well, maybe we can bring Ash back in too and kind of start our roundtable discussion. First of all, encourage anyone who has questions to please get those in. Would love to hear from you as well. I certainly have a lot that I wanted to ask. Maybe we can start with an area that that Pilar mentioned that I see a lot in my interactions with people in the industry, which is a big misunderstanding around what AI is. You know, Ash, what can you, how do you go into a prospective customer or someone you're just trying to educate about this market and explain to them what AI is and what it isn't, in a logistics context especially? Maybe you could start off big picture and then drill down to logistics.
Sure. So when I got a very I think I've got a very different perspective on the space and how I'm especially I'm going out in the market from a co-leader as a company perspective. So when I started my journey, I met with a lot of people in the industry, and every single person told me that focus on one product. And I have not operated that way when I was in my consulting days or in the industry. When you're engaged with a customer, the discussion was always, how can I add value to your operation? And and when you are talking to a decision maker, the question always starts from, what am I bringing to the table? And technology comes after the fact. So we have built that in our DNA in how we are going after the market. So the discussion is always that, if you're a freight forwarder, you may have assets, and you may be an asset-based freight forwarder or a non-asset-based. So based on that, I structure my discussion. If you're a non-asset-based freight forwarder, we can talk about process automation, document digitization, customs filing, things like that using AI, and help them understand what is the value that AI brings versus a traditional, a BPO company that may help you enter the data where they make mistakes. How can AI help you in this process, from not just from data entry, from data enrichment, making HS code classification, predictions using AI versus just creating another RPA bot that's getting the data in the system. But if I'm talking to a freight forwarder that is asset based, so they typically own warehouses, and so then the discussion is entirely different. Oftentimes I may start with one side of the business and say that, look, here's warehouse automation. Inventory is your problem. Taking put away replenishment, your distribution channels, these are the problems, and this is how AI can help you solve that. So we help them create digital twin of the process, and when they see the value, it's very synergistic. The thought process is, we are selling, or we are talking to the functional buyer in a supply chain organization, and they're not so much concerned about whether you're bringing AI or RPA or how are you solving their problem, and that exactly is the approach we have taken. So once you can speak to the problem that they are facing today, and then you bring AI kind of technology to the table, AI and IoT usually go hand in hand. They're very receptive, and every single client I've spoken to, they have reciprocated that way.
Great. Well, I wanted to get that question sort of just as a level set for the presentations that you both have. So Ash, maybe you can go into your presentation right now, and we'll follow that up with some slides from and a presentation from Pedro after that.
Sure. Can everyone see my presentation? Okay, great. So this is, I'll give a quick overview of what we have been working on. We started this journey, a while back when the industry was in Silicon Valley. Some of my friends, they would pay money to go to a Tesseract class that Google would conduct. Lots of people didn't even understand what Tesseract was. And we started from that point, and like any other startup, we have matured over the course of time. But I was very clear from the very beginning that we don't want to be a one-trick pony, because logistics and supply chain as an industry is global. That's how we operated back in my consulting days. We did projects in North America with their counterparts in Europe. Or in South America. So we used to fly, wherever the business is, and that's how we build this. So our premise was very simple, that logistics and supply chain is global, whether you're talking to a company in Brazil or in the United States, or out in Singapore or in India. It's usually the same with small local variances. So we looked at the entire value chain, and we wanted to make a play there. And then we took, two parts of the technology. So this is what we have done. We built the core technology for intelligent OCR from the ground up. We did a lot of R&D, and the difference between what we have built versus every other company out there, we built the tech that actually, reads documents. So we are not going out to a customer and saying that, give me your, commercial invoices and documents, and we're going to train a model. And you'll have, every time your format changes, we'll have to go back in and you have to retrain. We actually build the tech that reads document. So whether you're dealing with invoices, purchase orders, freight forwarding. So irrespective of the functional area that you are in, we are able to make a play because we have built the core tech. The second pillar that we are active in is machine vision, and combining, using these two, we are looking into the end-to-end supply chain. So our approach has been very successful. Since we launched, we have received awards in 4 continents. We are currently engaged in 12 countries, and our thesis has really been extremely successful. So let me share. Yeah. So if you go to our website, currently it's best view on Google Chrome. But if you go to our website, it tells you the story. Basically, what we did, we took AI, IoT, we built the core tech, and we are extremely strong in this space. And we created a concept of hyper automation. And you go to any supply chain organization, and based on their footprint, we start the discussion from a value perspective. And wherever, whether you're a company with freight forwarding, intermodal, both as part of your business, or you are just a freight forwarder, or you are a corporation with supply chain divisions where you're running warehouses and you're dealing with trucking companies, all of that. So these are the 4 functional areas where we are active in. Freight forwarding and customs. We are doing business with ports, intermodal organizations. We are partners with a lot of the leading platforms that a lot of listeners on this call are already aware of. In the warehousing space, we are working with from 50 million to $21 billion organizations. In fact, yesterday, $21 billion organization, Mahindra Group just announced that they have done a technology alliance with CoreReader as a result of the innovative work we did with them over the last few months. And when you go to the enterprise side, there are invoice purchase orders, and there are so many different use cases. So if you drill down further, we built the core tech, and now we are applying in these 4 functional areas: freight forwarding and customs, intermodal and drayage. So when ships are arriving, they have arrival notices, and because those arrival notices, even companies like Flexport, from what I understand, they are unable to consume that, and because of that, their congestion in port, dray carriers don't know where the loads are. So you can actually digitize that process, and we have done a tremendous job doing that, and to add to the visibility. Then looking into the freight operations where you're in air cargo, ground transportation, so the end-to-end logistics supply chain process. It's the same core tech, just different use cases, and that's why I am not a believer of being a one-trick pony. It's the same core tech, and these are just different use cases, and that's why I call it a platform. The second part of the business where we are focused in is machine vision. It's really Industry 4.0, but from a very logistics and supply chain perspective. So in warehouse, back in my consulting days, we would go to organizations and we would talk about warehouse of the future, 4 walls projects and things like that. But inside the warehouse, once that warehouse is built and you're thinking of automation, there's a lot of after the fact thought that's in, and we are totally changing the game, and that's part of the reason Mahindra Group really liked what we did. So we have totally changed the way how warehouses think about inventory and how they create visibility by creating digital twins. We are actually eliminating the inventory problem. People go and count inventory at end of the week, end of the month, and how do we fix that? So we have done tremendous innovation in that space. Same in the if you go to the port side of the business, we are focused on container damage detection using AI and Internet of Things, IoT sensors, etc. So and if you expand it's the same core tech. Once you start, once you've got the core capabilities, you can apply to quality controls, load planning in air cargo industry when you're sending ULDs, assembling and deassembling of those. And we always love learning from large enterprises. So we are very out there, and we get invites from all over the world. Most recently, we got an introduction from invite from Switzerland. So it's a global business, and oftentimes we learn from customers what they're trying to solve, and if you find a good fit around our common core, then we take on the use case. So that's basically the concept of co-reader technologies and what we are doing with AI and IoT across the entire value chain.
Fantastic, Ash. I've had a chance to have a couple long chats with you in the past, and always fascinated by what you are doing and the breadth of things that you're, the breadth of different organizations you're touching. Pedro, why don't you kind of walk us through your slides, and then after that we can jump into some more of those questions I had.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Let me show my screen, then we'll kick off. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
All good.
Okay. So as Sebek mentioned, I mentioned before, this is me. Happy in the bit. So a little bit worse today. But I work for GFT. GFT is a big consultant across companies, as I mentioned, and I'm happy to work in many different projects for different clients in different situations. So my idea today is, instead of I'm not going to tell you what we can do in GFT. You can go to my website, you can do a tech. I'm going to tell you a story, one of the use cases we have with one of our clients. So I will guide you why we use artificial intelligence in there, why we didn't use any other thing, okay? Because why was the value? So let's kick off. When I talk to my clients, the biggest problem they have, there are two words that they always appear is, I need all the data and I need it in real time. This is nowadays, these are the two things that every client comes to us. Some years back, it was just all the data. The real time was like something we used to have, nice to have, but it was not a need. Nowadays, they want everything in data. They want everything and they want fast. When we talk, what happened when we talk about all data is that the volume is huge and the speed is huge. That's the real time. So we are already in a situation where we cannot handle the data by humans. That's the first place where artificial intelligence should come into the picture. I mean, humans can do some things perfectly, but volumes of data is not the strong part. So that's where we need artificial intelligence. So when we talk to the client, the first thing they need is we have machines, we have systems, we have, we have trucks, we have cars, we have sending data all around, but I don't have a view. I need to see where things are. I need to know where we'll be tomorrow and try to analyze how my business is going to evolve during time. That's normally what we are requested to do. So as an example, as I promised, I will tell you an example, which is a car manufacturer. One of our clients is a car manufacturer. Well, if you think about the last time when you bought your car, you go to the dealer and you request a car, but this car should come from the factory. So when the car leaves the factory, it goes to the car line. With the car line is a place where they check in detail every car, some cars randomly, but they check the car. Then they go to logistics, by train, by truck, whatever you call it, and they appear to the dealer. The problem we had when we reached them was that these 4 steps, they were handled independently. So assembly line is an island in the process, care line is an island, logistics is an island. They have a lot of information. They were split apart and they were not joining together. So the first place was, okay, let's put this data together, which is the first step we always do in the organization, is all the data should be centric. I mean, let's go to data centric. I'm not talking about data lake or all the technology. I'm just talking about all the data available in the same ecosystem, same language, same way of using data. So what did we do? If we go to the assembly line, what was the goal we have in the assembly line was, okay, so what do you do here? Assembly line, if you have it in your mind, is someone is in front of a car, they are assembling pieces, a car is going very fast, but they have to report, okay, there is a defect, something is going wrong, I need to stop the line, go to a computer, and those things. The first thing we included here was the usage of the voice. So with the help of Google and Dialogflow, we were capable of putting people a headset where they can talk while they work. So using artificial intelligence to process this voice is something that can only be done with artificial intelligence. I mean, you can put someone on the other side listening to the conversation and typing, but that's not the way we do things nowadays. So this is one of the scenarios we start working with them, is how to interact this with a lot of complex, because you will probably think, okay, it's just voice. I talk to my Alexa, I talk to my Google Home, and it works. But imagine working in a factory where all the machines are working all the time, the noise, everything working continuously. That was quite a challenge, which we achieved here in this situation. If we go one step further and we go to the second step, I mentioned what is the care line. The care line is where someone inspect a vehicle randomly. So they get one car and they check, okay, is everything, are all the bolts in place, all the pieces of the car perfectly, there's no scratch or no dent, something like that. What we put in here was, why don't we put very high definition cameras, and we, instead of selecting some random cars, we inspect all the cars looking for defects. So we can ensure that every car that has left the factory has gone through a door, let's call it a door, where the cars go through, and you have all the cameras around and you can inspect this data. As I mentioned before, we can't expect someone to look all the pictures all the time. because it's not something that can happen that way. That's why we need to use artificial intelligence. On the other hand, if you try to program this, there is no way you can program this to be so responsive that you can that tomorrow a new car arrives into the chain and you can respond to that in a real time. Okay, that's why, as I mentioned, artificial intelligence is the backbone that we use in this project, in this kind of project. And in the last part, last but not least, was okay. Now we have the car. Now it has left the factory. And what happens now? The car goes truck by truck. It changes between trucks, and we want to get it to the dealer. The idea is that we can handle that using the data and controlling using IoT. If we can use GPS on a car and we can send data real time, positioning the car in the world, we can have a place where you can provide the dealer an estimate time, like it's going to arrive in 2 days, it's going to arrive in 2 hours. That's the way of calculation we can do using machine learning for thousands or millions of cars in real time. That's the sort of thing we use in this part. But we have to keep in mind that it's not just providing value. It's not just providing data to the dealer or it's just controlling the full ecosystem. When we completed this project, the idea is that now you control the chain, you control the logistics, you know where things happen, and there are no holes where you lost control. This was one of the situations and different parts of artificial intelligence that we have used and put it in place for this kind of scenario. I hope you get a better impression about the things we do and the kind of projects we do and the artificial intelligence, how we can use for them. So Eric, this was more or less my presentation. I want to keep it short and let's move to the roundtable.
Yeah, fantastic. Great, very tangible, sort of use case for people to understand. It seems sort of limitless, the opportunities. So I want to kind of focus as much as we can on helping people understand. One thing I think about as it applies to AI in logistics or sort of supply chain use cases is something I see across a bunch of different technologies that I report on, which is people seem very focused on the what rather than the why or the output of the technology. The way I always think about this is not too many people think about how the internet works. Yet everything we do is on the internet, but there seems to be a big focus on what blockchain is and what AI actually is. How do you sort of go about those conversations with clients and customers and sort of gear them toward what this enables rather than getting focused too much on the the sort of nuts and bolts of it? Maybe Ash, you can start off, and Pedro, your thoughts.
Sure. Thanks, Eric. Like I mentioned early on, our focus is always on the value part of the equation, not the technology itself. And despite being in the industry for so long, every customer we find that they have some uniquenesses. So once we go in, we are always listening that how can we best add value to what you are doing and how you are doing today. And if we can apply technology to help you do that better, that's always the conversation. And sometimes it's AI is one part of it. Behind the scenes, there's a lot more. For example, we can talk about automation all day, and there's a lot of focus in the industry about automation platforms. There are lots of funding that has taken place, but I don't see these as isolated functions. So if you are a customer, you're not looking necessarily to go into a middleware interconnected ecosystem of supply chain systems. That's just one part of it. There are companies like TIBCO, WebMethods, etc. They've been staying in the integration space for so long. It's just a different way of using cloud infrastructure that AWS Azure provides to the equation. So I think the key is talking about the value, and in create the value, you have to have all parts of the business, whether you're doing partnerships with these ecosystems, or you have in-house capability, or you might be using a customer's existing ecosystem. I think it's careful not to be lost in the technology. The second thing I would add over there is I see a lot of and I've traveled to presentations in Silicon Valley. There are people who stand out in front of the audience and they say we have processed 1.5 million documents, 99.99% accuracy. I mean, I'm quite frankly appalled at the lies that are being spilled out in front of the customer, because it's setting a wrong expectation for the industry as a whole. AI is not there yet. There are areas where AI is it performs very well, but especially areas like document digitization, it's not accurate. It can range anywhere from 70% to 95%. If the formats are fixed, anyone can hard code it. Then you don't need AI. You can just do basic Python programming, and you can get 100% accuracy there. So I think as an industry, it's our job to bring trust and accountability versus just getting lost in the sales cycle and telling customers something that's not entirely true. It creates a bad. This industry is taking this opportunity for everyone. If you look at research by organizations like PwC, there's AI as a whole is a $25 billion industry. And logistics supply chain, there's a huge opportunity. So if you bring the two together, the pie is really big. So I think we got to have the conversation from a value perspective, and then bring technology like AI, IoT, etc., into the equation to see how we can solve the problem.
Yeah, Pedro, I'm interested in your thoughts, and also maybe I can add another question to the mix as well. In your experience, are companies best suited sort of outsourcing their AI needs, or do some of them have some capability internally?
Yeah, let me give my thoughts on the first one, so I clear my mind and then go back. And probably normally when we approach our client, we are more, if you are a Tarantino fan, it's more like Mr. Wolf. So we go to solve problems. So if we ask them, what's your problem? We go to solve the problem. If artificial intelligence is in the picture or not, it will come afterwards. They need a solution. And the problem comes when, on the other side, there's so much hype about artificial intelligence that if you don't put artificial intelligence in the proposal, it's not going to make it. So what is it? It's not just us it's the market that is requesting this to play this game.
Yeah.
So let's see. From my understanding, it comes on any situation, but normally we just talk about solution. And sorry, your second question was,
the extent to which companies need to look for a third party
outside
to provide this, or whether they have sort of more capability gradually in-house to manage this.
I think it's quite of a balance. I mean, when you do artificial intelligence, there is a percentage that you need to know the data, and that only happens in-house. But we are we are in the state of the art about artificial intelligence yet. We are scratching the surface. There is a lot of things we need to learn yet, and that can be learned in-house, because you would need a very big team learning all the time, and that's probably where, it's bad for me to say, but where consultancies with more rotation, with more specialists, they come into the picture and help you accelerate this process. Maybe in the future you can internalize this knowledge, but as a catalyst at the beginning, I think you need to outsource.
Okay, interesting. One of the sort of ways I think about automation, as I've sort of myself sought to understand this better, is sort of on a spectrum of kind of, RPA maybe on one side, and what I've had people describe to me as kind of intelligent automation, which I perceive to be around, automation where it's suggesting a course of action, or the system is actually undertaking a course of action. Where do you think, kind of your clients and the industry as a whole is on that spectrum for the most part? Are we still sort of at that RPA stage? Are we moving more toward that intelligent automation stage? And is that RPA kind of stuff a requirement to move to that intelligent automation, kind of environment? Pedro, I'll give you first crack at this, and then Ash.
Yeah, that's fine. For my point of view, RPA has an ecosystem where the problem is quite close. I mean, you have a problem, it's not going to change in time. You can automate an ecosystem like a closed ecosystem. When you go to artificial intelligence, you're in the jungle. So you have pictures. Imagine, let's put an example. You need to find out if people is wearing a mask in a shopping mall. That's the jungle. I mean, you don't know how people is going to wear it. You know how people is going to be. You can't use RPA, or at least not from the best of my knowledge, you can't use RPA to that sort of things. But if you have a process in your organization that is very tedious, every day you do the same, you can automate that. That's the place for RPA. So I think we can balance both, and it doesn't mean that you need to use always artificial intelligence, because sometimes I have seen using artificial intelligence in some clients. When we reach there, I say, why are you using this? This can be solved with a couple of code lines for all the things. It's just, as I mentioned before, because they are forced to use it, so they can go to their manager and say, we are using artificial intelligence in this department, and that's probably where we are. So,
yeah, interesting. Ash?
Yeah, it's a question that's near and dear to me, because when I was a decision maker, I personally hated RPA, and everyone was talking about RPA. And if you really think about what RPA is, it's been around since early 2000. So why are we talking about it in 2021, right? RPA is nothing but a screen scraping technology. You move the mouse, you type on the keyboard, key logging in screen pixel capture. That's all it is. And what has happened in the industry is lots of companies, they got massive funding, and they created a huge army of sales teams, and it was sold as platform. And when one part of the forest catches fires, it spreads. So now we have many RPA platforms. As an organization, do you really need RPA platforms? So I think there is a place for RPA platforms, and it's not necessary for intelligent automation. So although we are partners with UiPath, but not in a single deployment we have done till date. We needed the RPA platform itself, and oftentimes if you use a platform, it increases your cost of deployment. So for intelligent automation, what you really need is look at your process. Most of if you think of from a document perspective, most of the companies, they are exchanging documents over emails. If you create a process that can capture this from emails, so we created a machine learning service which interacts with the emails that are coming in. You don't need an RPA bot for that. RPA bot, it's a very, as a decision maker, I would question, because the thought behind setting RPA bots is, hey, you have a worker that costs you $65,000, and I can give you bots which will bring down your cost for $30,000. It's that's the wrong discussion. The discussion shouldn't be about replacing people. It's about using your existing people. How do we add value to the process using technology? So intelligent automation is about taking an existing process with existing people, and how do you help them do things much faster? And for that, I don't believe that you need RPA bots, AI, API, and email interfaces like the machine learning services. That's more than sufficient. That's all you need for intelligent enabling automation, process automation, hyper automation, or intelligent automation. These are different names in the industry. RPA is just a screen scraping technology with a bot that deployed in a control tower that can call APIs.
Interesting. Very interesting answer. We probably have time for one more quick question. We're actually in our last minute, so maybe really keep this short. I would love for each of you to maybe address one ROI from an investment in AI that people may not think is very obvious. Pedro, maybe you can give us something quickly. 30 seconds.
That is not so obvious.
Yeah.
It's hard to go. But if we go to the obvious, it's gonna sound like the bad guy in the call, but the personal, we save a lot of personal automating processes.
Ash.
I think the data entry part in document digitization, not many people realize that 10 to 12% of the data entry leads to customer satisfaction issues. There are mistakes done by people. I think when we're thinking of digitization of this process, I don't think everyone is thinking about the inaccuracies due to the human error. I think that's a good value add over there.
Fantastic. Well, Pedro, Ash, thank you so much. I learned a lot in a very short period of time, so I really appreciate your time and perspective today. And thank you again to Chango for having us all today.
Yeah, like
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Well, thank you. Fascinating. These